Warning: the author of this story has tagged it with the following explicit tags: Death. Listener discretion is advised. Hello everyone, welcome to Rainbow Infinity. Today I'll be reading TCC56's Graveside. If you like the reading, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Please enjoy. Chapter 1. Alphabittle hadn't explained to Misty where they were going. He'd simply said there was something he thought she should see, and had said it was such somber gravitas that she couldn't refuse. He had spoken nothing more, and in turn, his daughter stayed silent as well. There was something about how Alphabittle carried himself in that moment that stole away any questions she had. Without a word, he'd made clear that it would make sense once they got there, and with all they'd lost, Misty had made it a point to put her faith in her father. After all, he'd held on to the hope that she would come home someday. Their path out of Bridlewood was not meandering, but purposeful. Straight, going directly to their goal even if the way wasn't marked. It didn't take long to reach their destination, either, as it stood in the awkward place of outside the town, but not yet truly wild, after the hoof-worn trails faded into underbrush. It was the last bastion of the pony world before nature took control, a scattering of gravestones interspersed with wild-grown trees. It was a signal, a message. This was where a pony left behind civilization and became one with nature again. No path was cut, no fence erected, just low stone markers to show where past generations had found their rest. Each flat rectangular stone lay on the ground to be slowly overrun by greenery and loam, like those buried under them, destined to be retaken by the forest and returned to the earth. Onyx was there, unsurprisingly. The place fit her vibe. She looked up at the sound of hooves approaching, ready to confront whomever was disturbing her solitude. But when she saw who, her eyes went to Alphabittle, then to Misty, then looked to the ground. She stood, mumbled a near inaudible apology, and left the pair to their business. Misty almost stopped to apologize to the poet, but Alphabittle walked on and she had no choice but to keep up. They crossed generations, stepping around memorial stones old enough to have nearly disappeared into the ground before reaching their destination. Alphabittle's back straightened and his lips set into a tight line as he let Misty take the view in. Near a cluster of poplars sat 2 gravestones and a space saved for a third. 2 parents in their foal, only one of which was truly buried. Intellectually, Misty knew she should feel sad. She was standing beside the grave of her mother, after all. But her heart didn't. Couldn't. Her full hood memories of her father were limited to a few vague shapes, shadows that she only recently started to put context to. Her mother wasn't even that. Anything they might have shared was lost to time, buried under Opaling's sneering face. Confronted so starkly with it, Misty felt a little bad she couldn't remember the mare that gave birth to her. But in that moment, she also had greater issues. The other marked grave, after all, was her own. It wasn't quite hers. Sensibly there was no cutie mark engraved on it, and the name lacked her adopted Bright Dawn. But the stone still read Misty in bold black letters, and below it sat both the date of her birth and the date of her disappearance. It lay barely tended to, in stark opposition to the oft-cleaned and maintained one beside it. Misty turned to her father. He didn't meet her eyes as he shook his head, something that spoke volumes without a word. A grave dug without his permission, a stone set despite his fighting fate. Probably the work of a friend or family member who tried to leave a memorial, even as they saw the grieving father in denial. The lost wife's maintained. The daughter he never believed truly dead left follow. She searched for words and found none. What could you say when faced with something like this? He hadn't given up on her, and even if he had, Misty wouldn't have blamed him. They both carried the pain of lost time, and had been working to reclaim what they could. This was simply a relic, a scar, left from a history they were struggling to forget. To be honest, Misty wasn't entirely certain why her father had brought her here, other than to simply inform her that it existed. But he did have an answer for that unspoken question. A simple one. A crowbar. Having given her time to take things in, Alphabittle finally stepped past Misty to shove the tool's thin, wedge-shaped end into the dirt. He ignored his magic, instead opting for the brute force of his hooves to dig around until the point worked its way under the memorial stone. There was nothing to lever the crowbar against, but that hardly stopped Alphabittle. He wiggled the bar into the soft earth, back and forth, as he slowly worked the stone loose. Misty watched on, unsure if he even wanted help. A grunt of effort, and then the marker stone tore free. Alphabittle's magic took over, lifting it up and nothing. He stared at the stone, unsure, as if he never considered what to do with it after he'd pulled the accursed thing up. His bright pink magic was overwhelmed by a softer shade as Misty lit her own horn. Her magic, stronger, more practiced, just as determined, took control of the marker and pushed. Pressure on both ends made the rectangular stone tremble before it snapped in half, right at the I in her name. Then each half snapped again, then those four once more. She took the now thoroughly broken fragments and, with a quiet grunt of effort, catapulted them through the tree cover and into the sky. Several birds took exception at that, scattering with angry chirps. That left father and daughter in silence, not just theirs but of the whole forest around them. He turned to her and she recognized the look on his face. When they were first reunited, after the initial moment of shock passed, he had looked like this. An expression that mixed vindication with relief, with joy, with sorrow. Something that spoke not just of the happiness of being reunited, but sadness at the time lost. Misty hated that it was familiar. Still, if any moment in her life needed that, this was it. And there in the woods, beside a newly lonely grave, Misty embraced Alphabittle and quietly asked him to tell her about her mother. Thank you for listening in. I hope you enjoyed the reading. Until next time, stay tuned.